The storm, the stranger, and the smile. Was nearly midnight when the rain started falling, like the sky had finally broken open. Heavy drops crashed against the pavement, turning the streets into thin rivers that shimmered under the glow of streetlights. Inside a quiet old hotel on the edge of the city, a young black waitress named Layla wiped down the last table of the night. Her uniform was damp from the short walk she took earlier to help an elderly man to his car. She was used to helping. She was also used to being invisible. The hotel wasn't fancy. The wallpaper peeled in the corners. The carpet smelled of forgotten summers, and the kitchen was held together with tape, prayers, and stubborn hands. But it was home. Layla had worked here for nearly 5 years. She served breakfast with a smile and dinner with heart, even when no one noticed. Her dream was to one day own a place like this, but bigger, warmer, kinder. She wrote that dream on a napkin once and kept it in her back pocket, just to remind herself that she hadn't given up. On this night, the wind howled louder than usual. Thunder rumbled so deeply it made the glasses on the shelf tremble. She looked at the clock. 11:53 p.m. Time to lock up. As she reached for the light switch, the front door burst open. A man stumbled in, soaked to the bone. His dark hair was plastered to his forehead, his black jacket dripping a small puddle at his feet. He looked lost, tired, and familiar. "Sir," Layla said, stepping closer. "You okay?" He looked up slowly. His eyes met hers, tired eyes, kind eyes, and then she knew it was Keanu Reeves. But there was no spotlight, no security, no camera flashes, just a quiet man, shivering and clearly stranded. "My car broke down a few blocks away," he said in a soft voice. "I was trying to get help. No one's around." Layla didn't blink. She didn't scream. She didn't even reach for her phone to take a picture. Instead, she nodded and said, "You need to sit down. You're freezing." She brought him a towel from the back and a warm cup of tea she'd been saving for herself. He thanked her with a tired smile and took small sips, his hands shaking slightly. "This place is quiet," he said after a long silence. "Feels safe. It tries to be." Layla replied, wiping her hands on her apron. "It's old, but it's still standing." Keanu looked around. "You work here alone?" "Most nights, yeah. Manager leaves early. Says the guests don't need much after 10. But people still need kindness, even after 10. He looked at her like she had just said something important. More important than she knew. "Do you have a room?" he asked. She laughed softly. "We've got 3, and only one with hot water. But you can have it. No charge. I'll pay." "Not tonight," she said firmly. "Tonight. You're just a tired man who got caught in the rain." For a moment, he didn't say anything. Then he stood up and bowed his head a little. "Thank you, Miss Layla." "Just Layla." "Thank you, Layla." She handed him the key to room 104. She didn't tell anyone. She didn't ask for anything. She just handed him a clean towel, turned down the bed, and left a small note on the pillow that said, "Rest well, stranger." But she didn't sleep that night. Something about him, his eyes, his silence stayed with her. She thought about what it must feel like to be seen by millions, but known by none, to be followed, photographed, praised, and judged all in the same breath. And now, here he was, sleeping under the same broken roof she worked under. No cameras, no armor, just a human being in need of kindness. The next morning, she made him breakfast, eggs, toast, and coffee. Nothing fancy, but made with care. He ate slowly, nodding at every bite. "Best breakfast I've had in a long time," he said with a warm smile. "You probably say that everywhere," she joked. "Only when I mean it." As he left, she walked him to the front door. "How will you get home?" she asked. "A friend's on the way. I'll be all right." He paused, then looked at her seriously. "You didn't treat me like anyone special, because you are someone special, just like everyone else." Keanu Reeves looked at her as if something inside him had shifted. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Sure. What's your dream?" She hesitated, then reached into her back pocket and pulled out the worn napkin. He unfolded it gently. The words were faded, but still clear. "Own a hotel where no one feels alone." He nodded. "Keep this safe," he said, folding the napkin again and handing it back. "And remember, sometimes dreams knock softly before they enter." With that, He stepped into the sunlight, and Layla watched him disappear into the city. A week passed. The hotel returned to its usual rhythm: quiet guests, slow afternoons, forgotten tips. Layla continued working late, wiping tables, and keeping her dream folded neatly in her pocket. Until one morning, a man in a suit walked in with a paper in hand and a strange smile on his face. "Are you Layla?" he asked. "Yes, I'm here on behalf of someone who wants to remain anonymous, but he left a message." He handed her a sealed envelope. She opened it slowly. Inside was a handwritten note. "Dear Layla, you gave without asking. You saw me without staring. You reminded me what real kindness looks like. I bought this hotel. It's yours now. Turn your dream into something others can rest in. A friend." She dropped the letter. Tears filled her eyes. The man handed her a set of keys. "It's official. Your name is on the deed. Congratulations, Miss Layla. Or should I say, owner Layla." And just like that, the waitress who once wiped tables with silent grace now stood in the middle of her dream with a full heart, trembling hands, and a future wide open. Whispers in the hallway, and keys that unlocked more than doors. Layla didn't move for a long time. She just stood there in the quiet lobby of the old hotel, staring at the letter, the keys, and the man in the suit who said it all so calmly, as if giving someone a life was just another task on a list. "I don't understand," Layla whispered. This has to be a mistake." The man smiled gently. "I understand that reaction. But no, it's not a mistake. Your friend made sure everything was done right. Legally, financially. This hotel belongs to you now. All the paperwork has been filed. All the documents are yours." Layla sat down slowly on one of the chairs in the lounge. It creaked under her weight like it was trying to process everything too. She looked around the lobby: the peeling wallpaper, the old ceiling fan that buzzed when it spun, the cracked floor tiles near the front desk. This place had always been her job. Now, it was her responsibility. Her dream, yes, but also a heavy one. "Why would he do this?" she asked softly. The man paused before answering. "He said you reminded him of someone who helped him once when he was nobody. He said you treated him like a human being, not a headline. That kind of grace is rare." Layla pressed her hand against her chest, feeling the rhythm of her heartbeat. It felt louder than usual. Maybe it was the joy, or maybe it was the fear. She didn't know how to run a hotel. She only knew how to serve coffee with a smile, how to keep the floors clean and listen to lonely guests talk about their childhoods. She didn't know anything about taxes, inventory, permits, or profit margins, and yet she was now the owner. After the man left, Layla stood behind the front desk and looked at her reflection in the small dusty mirror on the wall for the first time. She didn't look like just a waitress. She looked like a woman standing at the beginning of something bigger than herself. That night, she didn't sleep. Instead, she stayed up rereading the letter over and over, holding the keys like they were sacred. She remembered Keanu's words: "Sometimes dreams knock softly before they enter." She had heard the knock. Now she had to open the door. The next morning, she did something bold. She gathered every staff member. There weren't many. Just Tom the cook, Miss Gloria the cleaner, and Jamie the night clerk, who always had headphones in one ear. They all sat in the empty dining room, confused and curious. "I have something to tell you," Layla began, her voice trembling slightly. "As of today, I am the new owner of this hotel." Silence. Jamie took out his earbud. "Wait, what?" Someone gave it to me. Someone I helped. And now it's mine." Miss Gloria blinked. "Girl, are you joking?" "I wish I was," Layla said, smiling nervously. "But it's real. I signed the papers this morning. I wanted you all to hear it from me first." Tom leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "So what now? You planning to fire all of us and bring in suits?" "No," Layla said quickly. "Never. This hotel doesn't run without you. I want us to make this place better, together. No one gets left behind." That made them all sit a little straighter. "This place has heart," Layla continued, "and we're going to polish it, paint it, fix what's broken. But we're keeping the heart." For the first time in years, the dining room felt warm. The next few days were filled with movement. Layla made lists: things to fix, things to clean, things to dream. She met with local vendors and asked questions no one had ever answered for her before. She called banks, talked to contractors, stayed up late learning about business licenses. Her hands were blistered from scrubbing, but her spirit was brighter than ever. One afternoon, as she was repainting the lobby walls, a couple entered the hotel. They looked confused, like they weren't sure they'd come to the right place. "Welcome to the Crescent Inn," Layla said, wiping her hands on her jeans. "Can I help you?" The man looked around. "We saw the reviews online," said the staff. "Was kind, rooms were clean. And someone wrote that the owner left a handwritten welcome note in their room." Layla smiled. "We try to make people feel at home here. You must be the owner." "Yes, I am." They nodded, clearly impressed. As she handed them the room key, the woman whispered, "It's rare to see someone who owns a place and still works the front desk." "Well," Layla said, "I still believe in holding doors open for strangers." As the couple walked to their room, Layla felt a new kind of pride. Not the loud kind that comes from praise, but the quiet kind that grows when you're finally living in your truth. A few days later, something strange happened. A black car pulled into the hotel parking lot. Tinted windows, slow pace. It looked out of place among the beat-up sedans and rental vans that usually showed up. Layla was in the garden area, watering the flowers she had planted just last week, sunflowers, her favorite. The driver stepped out, tall, clean-cut, quiet. He walked up to her and said simply, "He's inside." "Who?" she asked, but the man didn't answer. Instead, he opened the back door of the car, and out stepped Keanu Reeves. This time, he wasn't soaked or shivering. He looked rested, calm, but something in his eyes said he hadn't forgotten. Layla stood up slowly, heart racing. "You came back." He nodded. "I wanted to see it. Your dream." She led him inside. She showed him the fresh paint, the new welcome sign, the small chalkboard with quotes of the day written by Miss Gloria. He walked through each hallway, quiet and thoughtful. "You've done more in a week than most people do in a year," he said. "I had help," she said. Looking at him, "I only gave you a key," he replied. "You built the home." They sat down in the small cafe corner, sipping sweet tea. "Why me?" she finally asked. "You could have helped anyone." Keanu leaned forward. "Because you didn't look at me like a movie. You looked at me like a person. And sometimes, that's the hardest thing to find." They sat in silence. To people from completely different worlds, connected by a moment of rain, warmth, and simple kindness. As he stood to leave, he reached into his coat pocket. "One more thing," he said, handing her a small notebook. "Write everything. Your thoughts, your fears, your growth. One day, someone will need your story." And then he walked away. But this time, Layla didn't just watch him go. She walked back into the hotel she now owned, placed the notebook on the front desk, and wrote the first line. "I once served coffee with a dream in my pocket. Now I serve hope with keys in my hand." Asterisk the letter in the drawer, and the reporter at the door for the first time in her life. Layla had something that felt like power, but not the kind that made her look down on others. It was the kind that made her lift them up. Every morning she walked into the hotel lobby, she reminded herself of where she came from. Every time she turned the key in the front door, she thought of the broken girl who once cried in the staff bathroom after being yelled at by a guest. And now, that same girl was the one writing paychecks. It didn't feel real, not yet. But each new day was helping her believe it. She'd started writing in the notebook Keanu gave her. Every night, she wrote what she learned, what went wrong, and who made her smile. She filled entire pages about Miss Gloria's jokes, Tom's strange love for burnt toast, and Jamie's habit of leaving doodles on the receipt paper. But one night, something else filled the page. That night, she found a letter. She was reorganizing the old office drawers, just trying to make sense of years of ignored paperwork. Most of it was useless, faded receipts, broken pens, cracked calculators. But in the very back, beneath a drawer liner, she found a small envelope. It was addressed to "Whoever sees this next." Curious, Layla opened it. The handwriting was shaky, almost as if written by someone whose hands didn't move like they used to. "This hotel was once my home. I built it with my wife, Ella. In 1963, we poured our hearts into each room, each hallway. We had nothing but a dream, and somehow, that was enough for a while. But time wore us down. She passed in '78. I never recovered. And the hotel stopped feeling like home, if you're reading this. And if by some miracle you care enough to make this place warm again, please, don't change too much. Let it be old. Let it have character. Let it have heart. That's all it ever needed. Signed, E. Willis. Layla folded the letter slowly. Something inside her shifted. A connection was forming, not just between her and the walls, but between her and the stories buried in them. She decided, right then and there, to name one of the rooms Ella's room. She even placed a tiny frame in it with the letter printed inside. The past had to live with the present. Otherwise, the future would mean nothing. The next morning brought something unexpected. A reporter showed up. She was young, sharp-eyed, and held a notebook like it was a weapon. "Hi," the woman said, stepping into the lobby with purpose. "Are you Layla, the new owner?" Layla nodded, cautious. "Can I help you? I'm from the Daily Journal. I've been following a story that's catching some quiet attention. A waitress becomes a hotel owner overnight. No lottery, no inheritance, no headlines. And then, a witness says Keanu Reeves was spotted here the week before." Layla froze. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said carefully. "So you're saying Keanu Reeves didn't come to your hotel?" "I'm saying, maybe some people want privacy. Maybe some acts of kindness aren't meant to be broadcast." The reporter didn't back off. "This story could change your life. A feature like this could get you investors, partnerships, a book deal maybe." Layla shook her head. "I already have what I need. A place with soul, and people who care, and a story that belongs to me, not the media." The reporter stared for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she closed her notebook. "No comment, only this," Layla said. "If you write anything, write that kindness changes lives quietly, and that not every miracle has a spotlight." The reporter left without another word. That afternoon, Layla sat outside near the garden. The sunflowers were taller now, strong, reaching. Just like her. She opened her notebook and wrote, "I don't need the world to know who saved me. I just need to make sure I keep saving others." A few days later, she got a call. "Hello, is this Miss Layla Jones?" "Speaking. I'm from the City Restoration Council. We received an anonymous donation in your name. It covers a full renovation grant for your hotel." Layla blinked. "Sorry, what? You've been approved for a full exterior and partial interior restoration. Paint, signage, roofing, plumbing, the works, all funded. We just need your permission to begin." Layla stood in stunned silence. Another gift. Another hand reaching out when she wasn't asking. "Yes," she finally said. "Please, let's begin." Construction started a week later, but not the kind that erased history. It was the kind that honored it. They kept the bones of the building. They polished the old wood instead of replacing it. They added warmth without removing soul. The crescenton began to glow in a way it hadn't in decades. And then the guests started coming. Not because of reviews or stories, but because of something else. A feeling. The feeling that someone was watching over the place. Not a god, maybe, but a spirit of care. Guests who arrived tired left with softness in their eyes. A traveler wrote in the guest book, "I came in a stranger. I left feeling known." It was Layla's way. She remembered everyone's name. She added little notes to breakfast trays. She told kids they were brave and told old folks they were remembered. One night, a man arrived late. He was in a wheelchair, thin, quiet. His hands trembled as he tried to sign the guest book. "You okay?" Layla asked gently. "Used to be a teacher," he whispered. "Now I just wander." She gave him room 104, the one Keanu had stayed in, the one with the best water pressure. In the morning, she found a folded paper on the front desk. "You made me feel like I still matter." "Thank you. No name, just gratitude." Layla placed it in her notebook, right beside Keanu's letter. The hotel was no longer just a building. It was becoming a haven, a living collection of kindness. And Layla, with her dreams and humble strength, was its beating heart. But something else was coming. Something unexpected. A letter in the mail with no return address. And a name inside that made her hand shake. Richard Bellamy, CEO of Bellamy Hotels. He wanted to meet her. The CEO, the offer, and the storm within letter sat on Layla's nightstand for 2 full days before she opened it. Again, she had read it once when it arrived, heart pounding, hands sweaty. The name on the envelope had startled her, Richard. Bellamy wasn't just anyone, he was one of the most powerful hotel owners in the country. His chain of luxury resorts stretched across cities like threads of gold on a map. He had no reason to notice a small, worn-down inn on the edge of the city. And yet, he had written, "Miss Layla Jones, I've heard of the remarkable transformation you've led at the Crescent Inn. I'd like to meet you in person. There's potential in your story and in your place. I believe we might work together." Respectfully, Richard Bellamy. Layla didn't know how to feel. She sat alone in the breakfast room that night, sipping tea, her mind swirling. Miss Gloria said, "Girl, don't trust them suits. They always smile when they want to take something." Tom just nodded quietly, as he always did when he didn't like something but didn't know how to say it. Still, Layla couldn't help but wonder. What if he wanted to help? What if he could take the Crescent to another level? More rooms, better systems, even training for the staff. She didn't want to grow for money. She wanted to grow for purpose. So she agreed to the meeting. They met at a small cafe downtown. Richard Bellamy was taller than she expected. Sharp suit, sharp voice. But his smile was calculated, not cruel, just careful. "Miss Jones," he said, shaking her hand. "You've built something rare." "I didn't build it alone," Layla replied. "It had bones. I just gave it breath again." He smiled at that. "That's exactly why you're interesting. Most people chase money. You chase meaning. And in our industry, that's a story the world needs." Layla raised an eyebrow. "So why are you here?" "I want to buy in," he said. "Partner with you, help you expand. I could take your vision and place it in 10 more cities. Imagine Crescent Inns across the country, the kindness model, warmth over wealth, hospitality with soul. With the right funding, you could help thousands." Layla leaned back. Her tea had gone cold. "Sounds big." "It is. Sounds risky." "That too. And how much of the original would stay?" she asked. "The handwritten notes, the old rooms with creaky doors, the sunflower garden." Richard paused. "Those details are charming, sure, but at scale, they become inefficient. We'd preserve the brand, not necessarily the details." Layla stood up slowly. "Then I think, maybe you don't understand what the Crescent is." He blinked. "Miss Jones, I didn't bring this place back to make money. I brought it back to remind people they matter. You can't scale love, Mr. Bellamy, and kindness doesn't grow under fluorescent lights and automated systems." He stood. To his voice softened. "You're smart, but the world will move with or without you. You could be part of something bigger." She shook her head gently. "I already am." With that, she walked out. And for the first time, she felt the weight of a no that would change everything. When she returned to the Crescent, her staff was waiting. She hadn't told them about the meeting, but they knew. They could feel the tension in her shoulders, the quiet storm behind her smile. "You all right?" Miss Gloria asked. "I said no," Layla replied. "Good," said Tom, handing her a cup of warm coffee. "Some offers are golden traps." But the days after that weren't easy. News of her rejection spread. Someone from Bellamy's team had leaked the story. Small-town waitress turns down $1 million deal. Some people called her a fool, others called her a hero. The attention brought new guests, but also pressure. A guest left a harsh review online, complaining about the creaky floors and interpersonal service. Another said the breakfast was too emotional. It hurt, more than she expected. One night, after everyone had gone to bed, she sat on the hotel steps and cried. The pressure, the noise, the opinions, it all felt like too much. And then she heard a voice. "You're allowed to cry, but you're not allowed to give up." She looked up. It was Keanu. Again. This time, he wasn't a stranger or a guest. He was a friend. "You heard?" she asked, wiping her face. "The whole world heard," he said, sitting beside her. "You did something most people never do. You stayed true, and now they're watching. I didn't want this kind of attention, I know, but sometimes the light finds you even when you hide." She looked at him. "You ever regret saying no to something big?" He nodded. "Many times, but never when it meant protecting who I really am." They sat in silence for a long while. Then Keanu reached into his pocket. "I brought you something." It was a small frame. Inside was a typed note. "The Crescent Inn, where kindness checks in. Thought you might need a reminder," he said. Layla held it close to her chest. "Thank you," she whispered. The next morning, she placed the frame on the front desk. And she wrote a new note for each room that day. Some said, "You are not alone." Others said, "You are loved, even by strangers." And one said simply, "You matter. Always." That week, a girl from out of town checked in. Quiet, nervous, barely speaking. Layla noticed the bruises on her arm, the way she flinched at loud sounds. She placed her in room 104. And wrote a special note just for her. "I don't know what you've been through, but I'm glad you're here. You are safe. You are not invisible." The girl wept when she found it. And for the first time in a long time, she slept peacefully. Layla didn't need the world to see her. She only needed the broken to feel whole again. And every creaky door, every cup of tea, every silent hug, that was her way of healing the world. One soul at a time. But just as she started finding peace again, another letter arrived. This one was handwritten, and it ended with four words that shook her to her core. "You don't know me." Asterisk the stranger's truth. And the memory that broke the silence. The envelope was small. No stamp, no return address. It had been slipped under the front door sometime during the night. When Layla picked it up, she noticed something strange. The handwriting looked rushed, almost trembling. She opened it slowly, feeling the weight of the unknown in her chest. Inside was a single page. "You don't know me, but I know you. I stayed at your hotel a year ago. You weren't the owner back then, just a waitress. You probably don't remember me. I was in room 103. I didn't speak much. I didn't smile. I didn't eat much either. You probably thought I was rude. But what you didn't know was that I came to the Crescent to say goodbye to the world. I had written a letter, packed my bag, and I had decided to end it all. But then you brought me tea. You left a cookie on the plate and said, 'You don't have to talk. Just rest.' No one had said that to me in years. No one had let me just be. That night, I didn't jump. That night, I slept. And in the morning, the world felt a little softer. I'm still here because of you. And you don't even know it. Thank you," from someone who once needed a reason to stay. Layla read it 3 times before her hands stopped shaking. Then she placed it gently into the notebook Keanu gave her. Page after page in that book held thoughts, fears, lessons. But now it held a life saved by a moment so small, so gentle, she hadn't even realized what it meant at the time. Layla sat in the garden after that. The sunflowers were bending with the wind, dancing softly. She whispered to them, "Thank you for staying," because somehow those words weren't just meant for the stranger. They were meant for her too. Later that day, something even stranger happened. A bus pulled up in front of the Crescent Inn. A group of quiet people stepped out. Some walked slowly, some had canes, some looked like they hadn't smiled in a long time. A woman with tired eyes approached the front desk. "Are you Layla?" "Yes. We're from the Healing Hearts shelter downtown. Someone left envelopes in our mailbox. Each one had a small note and a free night's stay voucher for your hotel. Did you?" Layla's heart dropped. "No," she said. "I didn't send anything." "Well," the woman replied, "whoever did knew where to send us." Layla didn't ask questions. She just welcomed them in. They filled room after room. Some cried when they saw the warm notes on their pillows. Some asked for extra blankets. Some just wanted to be held, even if only by silence. And Layla, true to her heart, gave them more than a place to sleep. She gave them dignity. She made extra soup. She wrote bedtime notes. She told Tom to play soft jazz on the old radio. And each time she walked past a guest, she whispered to herself, one at a time, "That's how we heal the world." That night, as she was locking the doors, a small boy tugged her sleeve. He looked no older than 9. Thin arms, quiet eyes. "Are you the boss?" he asked. Layla smiled. "I guess I am." He looked around shyly. "Do you have any paper?" "Sure," she said, handing him a notepad from the front desk. He sat by the fireplace and started writing something slowly, carefully. An hour later, as everyone settled into bed, the boy handed her a folded paper and tiptoed back to his room. Layla waited until morning to read it. Dear Layla, I think you're like my mama. She used to say good people have light in their hands. Your hands have light. Thank you for the cookies and for the bedtime story. I hope you don't forget me. She didn't cry. She wept. And as she held that paper to her chest, she whispered, I won't, ever. But the world outside the crescent didn't stop. Newspapers had started calling again. Blogs were writing about her. Podcasts talked about the kindness innkeeper. Strangers sent letters, flowers, offers. Some wanted interviews. Some wanted to buy her out again. One even offered to turn the hotel into a movie. She said no to all of them. Because the Crescent wasn't a brand. It was a refuge. It wasn't meant to be broadcast. It was meant to be believed in. But still, part of her worried. How long could she hold it all together? Then one morning, a package arrived. Inside was a worn-out journal, the pages full of poems, stories, confessions. It was titled The Guests We Never See, and on the first page, it read, Property of Ella Willis. Layla's eyes widened. Ella, the woman from the letter in the drawer. The one who built this hotel with her husband long before Layla was even born. Layla flipped through the journal. Each page was a piece of soul. One story was about a young woman who stayed after losing her child. Another was about a soldier who came back from war and couldn't sleep without checking all the locks twice. Ella had seen them all, and she had written them down. A memory at the back of the book caught Layla's breath. I believe a hotel is like a mother. She waits for you, feeds you, lets you cry into her walls, and never asks why. Just opens the door and says, You're home. Layla closed the book. Then looked up at the ceiling and whispered, Thank you, Ella. I'll keep it alive. As she stood to put the journal in a safe place, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You've helped others. Now it's time to face your own truth. I'm coming. We need to talk. No name. Just a shiver down her spine. Layla didn't know who it was, but something deep inside her knew the next person to walk through those doors would change everything. Asterisk the face she never forgot, and the promise she never broketh. Morning air felt heavier than usual. There was no storm in the sky, but something stirred in Layla's chest like the pause before thunder. She stood at the front desk, watching the clock hands drag toward 10. The guests were still sleeping. The coffee was warm. The sunflowers by the window swayed gently. But her heart was racing. The message from the night before stayed on her phone, untouched, unread again and again. You've helped others. Now it's time to face your own truth. I'm coming. Layla didn't know who sent it. But she knew what it meant. Somewhere in the back of her heart, there was a door she hadn't opened in years. Behind it lived a version of herself she rarely thought about. The girl who once ran from pain instead of facing it, who once believed some wounds stayed forever unspoken. Then the bell over the front door rang. And she froze. A tall man stood in the entrance. Not a stranger, but a shadow from a different life. He wore a worn jacket, his hair thinner than she remembered, but those eyes sharp, sad, familiar. Those hadn't changed. Layla whispered, Dad. He stepped forward, carefully, like he wasn't sure he was allowed to be there. Hi, Layla, he said softly. She hadn't seen him in almost 16 years. He had walked out when she was 12, left her and her mother in a one-bedroom apartment with rent overdue and fridge shelves half empty. No note, no goodbye, just silence that stretched for years like a scar. She had stopped waiting by the window after the first year. Now here he was, standing in the heart of the hotel she had built with her own 2 hands. What are you doing here? She asked, voice tight. I didn't know how to reach you, he said. I only found out about this place because of a newspaper. A friend sent it to me. Said he thought the woman in the story might be my daughter. Layla didn't answer, didn't move. Her whole body was a war between anger, confusion, longing, and pain. You shouldn't be here, she whispered. He nodded. I know, but I had to try. There was silence for a long time. Then he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something small. A photograph. A young Layla, maybe 7 years old, standing in front of a birthday cake with candles half tilted and her smile wide. I kept this, he said. All these years, every time I looked at it, I thought, Maybe someday I'd be strong enough to come back. She looked at the photo, then looked away. You were supposed to be strong then, she said. Not now. Not when I've already survived without you. He lowered his head. You're right. I failed you. I failed your mother, and I can't change what I did. But I'm not here to ask for forgiveness. I just wanted to see the woman you became and tell her she did it. She made something beautiful. Layla felt her breath catch. She didn't know what to say. I'm staying at the motel across the road. He continued. I'll leave in the morning. I just needed to look you in the eye and say I'm sorry. He turned to leave, but before he could reach the door, Layla spoke. Do you remember the night it rained so hard the roof leaked? He stopped. Nodded slowly. You took every towel in the house and made a tent over my bed, she said, and you told me it was a spaceship. You said the thunder was just space giants arguing. He turned around, tears in his eyes. I remember. He whispered. You laughed until you fell asleep. I haven't laughed like that in a long time. Layla said, but I'm trying. He took a step forward. Me too. There was a long silence. Then Layla did something she didn't expect. She walked to the front desk, picked up a spare key, and held it out. Room 105, she said quietly. It's got a leaky faucet, and the lamp flickers, but the bed's soft, and you can hear the sunflowers from the window when the wind hits them. He took the key with shaking hands. Thank you, he whispered. Don't thank me, she said. Just stay. He nodded. Just one night. Then I'll go. Layla didn't answer, because deep down, she didn't know yet. What she knew was this: sometimes the hardest kindness is the one you offer to someone who hurt you. And sometimes healing doesn't come in one moment. It comes in layers, like paint on a wall, like pages in a journal, like mornings in a place that refuses to stop loving people. The next morning, she placed a note on his pillow. We all have cracks. Some just let in more light. You're welcome here, if you want to be. Outside, the sunflowers leaned toward the window. Inside, Layla stood in the lobby as more guests came in. People with bags, people with stories, people with pasts they never talked about. And she welcomed each one, because that's what she had learned. You don't need a perfect life to change someone else's. You just need to care. Deeply, quietly, bravely. In the end, the Crescenton didn't become famous. It didn't grow into a chain, but it grew into something bigger than fame. A refuge. A home. A heartbeat. And Layla? She never forgot the cookie she left on a stranger's plate. She never forgot the note from the boy with quiet eyes. And she never stopped writing in her notebook. On the very last page, years later, she wrote, a stranger gave me keys. I gave them to the world. And in return, the world gave me back pieces of myself I thought were lost forever.